Welcome back to Path to Glory, the Warhammer Underworlds podcast that focuses on competitive gaming, player development, and community growth. This episode was made possible by our patrons. Thanks to everyone who supports us. If you're interested in supporting the podcast monetarily, please check us out at patreon.com/Path to Glory. If that's not possible, we still appreciate the listens and the ratings. This is Aman Kusar, and as always, I am joined by my mad co-host, Jonathan Davis. What's going on, my man?
Hello, hello. I am mad. I've been talking to snakes.
Yeah, what's it called? Mr. Fangs? That's his
Mr.
name?
Fangs.
I
Yeah.
love that name. Yeah, I mean, it's been a minute. I feel like after our crazy week, we kind of just took a step back, not only from recording but from each other.
Yeah, yeah. I think we probably spent like 8 hours together over that week. So,
I wouldn't
and
be
then there was
surprised if
prep
it was
time
more.
too. So,
Yeah, the prep
yeah.
time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you've been busy. You've been doing some
Yep.
cool things. How's that been going for you?
Good. Just busy thinking about changing careers. So that's a whole process. So
Yeah,
job interviews and stuff. So
never
busy,
easy.
busy. Yeah.
Busy, busy. Yeah. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, your boy's been doing Ramadan, and Ramadan has been kicking my butt mentally. So, no food and no water. Really, you can't consume anything from sunrise to sunset. And yeah, you just got to go about your day dehydrated on fumes. I'm really taking the whole hunger thing to a next level.
This is the season for it, I guess.
You're right. You're right. I've got like 30 hunger right now. Not sure what to do with it. But it's last 9 days. Very excited. A lot of discipline. I still work out, so been trying to focus on how to be more productive, despite the fact that you've got limitations. So it's been a really fun exercise. It made it really hard to play some of my European time zone games.
Hmm.
Um, we've been doing that online WTC, and then of course there are online games as well and leagues that we're all a part of. Um, but actually, uh, I thought about it and I said, well, I can just stay up a little bit later. And I was like, so I guess I've been doing it. It's been fun. Oh, Siri's confused. But anyways, I guess I'm not sure I understand either. But in today's episode, we will be covering Underworlds news, the new Hedkrakka's Madmob warband, and Patreon questions. So without further ado, Jonathan, if you could kick things off for us, please, with some news.
Yeah, we do have some news. The first item is that we have a few more patrons, Gora, David, and Al. Thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. Sorry for the delay on the end phase episodes to all of our patrons. This
Yeah.
last couple of weeks have just been kind of wild for us, so we haven't had the chance to put those together, but we will definitely be catching up on those. So don't worry about that.
Yeah. Thanks to our new patrons, and yes, we might have a mini end phase of Bonanza coming soon.
Yeah, yeah. A new Warband deck fest, probably. So
Yeah.
that should be fun. The other bit of news is that we are going to be having a Grand Clash style event for Underworlds at Frontline Gaming's Lone Star Open. This is in July 24th and 25th in Dallas, Texas. Um, I will be TOing the event, so that should be a lot of fun. Um, Games Workshop is not providing any prize support for events in 2021, I think, due to supply and just COVID issues in general. So we will be coming up with our own custom prizes through either ourselves or Frontline. So we should have some fun stuff for you. And Frontline is going to be following all of the safety guidelines needed to have a safe event. As the event gets closer, we'll know exactly what that looks like. So if you feel safe about it, come down and play some games, and I think it should be a lot of fun. There are also discounted hotel blocks, so check out Frontline's website for specific info on that. So it should be fun.
Yeah. There's a Facebook event as well, Lone Star Open.
Hmm.
So pretty similar to LVO, but it's LSO.
Yeah, I
And
think the tickets
yeah.
are 35 for the event, and that's like for everything to get in and participate. So um, yeah, it's been a while since I've played some games in real life, so I'm looking forward to you know people having that opportunity.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I guess you live in Dallas, but
Hmm.
um, it's only like 4 hours away in a car.
Yeah,
So
you have to see if you can get all the Houston guys to come up for it, and
yeah,
hopefully some of the North American people will travel in. That'd be fun.
yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Um, I feel like Texas has been fairly open now. So, I mean, if you have COVID concerns,
Hmm.
we've got a great rollout of vaccines here. I'm fully vaccinated, 5G realized, and not sure about Jonathan, but I'm sure he'll be on the way. So,
Yeah, my second one is later this month, so
there you go.
yep.
Just take an ibuprofen and pass out. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's what my fiance did too.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Well, one more thing that we wanted to announce today. We, as always, with a new warband releasing, we're going to do a contest.
yeah.
And if you want to win a copy of Hedkrakka's Madmob, then I guess, I don't know, before the 15th, that's halfway through, because there's two warbands this month, in case you didn't know. Kanan's Rebirth is right around the corner as well, according to the roadmap. We are going to request that you send in a video of your best WOG. And whoever
Hmm.
has the best WOG, and you can recruit friends, family. You can make this a family event. You can do a family WA together.
Yeah.
But truly, we want to see the best WA that you got. And we will watch every single one of these and then pick our favorite. So,
Yep, and this is going to be open to any of our patrons, just like all the other contests have been. So send those in. There'll be a post on the Patreon and in the Discord, so keep an eye out for that.
yeah, Jonathan, do you want to give us your best WA? You can say no.
Um, I'm gonna go with no. No, not gonna.
I gave you a cop out. I gave you one. All right, cool, cool. Well, we'll save the WAs for the vids or the contest. And I guess maybe if one really impresses us, we might slip it in at the end of a podcast or something. But okay, let's jump into the main meat of the episode, which is checking out Hedkrakka's Madmob. So,
Yeah.
as always, shout out to Games Workshop for giving us some packages, early product for us to review. We are not able to talk about the contents within the box. However, anything posted online is free game and well within our rights to discuss. And as of this morning, Warhammer Community dropped a first look at all of the cards in Hedkrakka's Madmob, including the Universals. So, as always, we'll start with the fighter cards. We'll jump to the objectives. We'll do the gambits and then the upgrades. We'll be alternating. So, let's kick things off with Hedkrakka's Madmob. Looking at the miniatures posted on the Warhammer Community article, Jonathan, I know we've talked about these in the past, but any one of them speak to you off the bat?
um, I like a lot of things about these miniatures. Actually, I like I like Headcracker's like dad bod that he's got going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what is the other one? Wallop. He's just that's just a cool pose. So
Yeah.
yeah, but they're all really cool looking.
I really like Daco, the archer. I think he's one of the
Mm.
best archer models I think I've ever seen. Um, and then I love Mr. Fangs, the snake.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how people paint him up, like give him like a python look or a boa constrictor or
Mm.
just red. Either way, looks fantastic. Um, yeah, I love the dad bod as well. Uh, orcs are people too, and not all
Yeah.
of them can go to the gym every day. So um, I'm happy for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Orc
Daco
orc
definitely
archer.
goes to the gym every day.
Your boy Daco is shredded.
He
Um,
really is.
Wallop is the bro who like knows he's strong but doesn't have to work out very much.
Yeah.
And then, uh, what's his name? Tooth Daga is just cosplay extraordinaire. So
Yeah. Yeah,
he thinks
exactly.
he's Wolverine. Okay, well, glad that we got that out of the way. Let's jump to Hedkrakka's Mad Mob, the fighter card. So we got Hedkrakka, the Gob of Gork. He is a level 2 wizard. He is the leader of the warband. He's got a movement of 3, 2 dodge. So even for a big boy, he can hop around. He's got 4 wounds. And on his uninspired stat line, he's got a range 2 staff attack that hits on 2 fury for 2 damage. Um, I think this is the first time we've seen a magical staff attack that's not on 2 smash, but
Mm-hmm.
he is an orc, so I guess he has a hard time hitting things. Then he's got a magical attack as well. So he's a range 3 attack that hits on focus. It does 1 damage. Has a special rule called Crushing. Plus 1 damage if the target is adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. So he can do 2 damage melee attack if you really want him to. Um, one thing that I really think is important to discuss off the bat is his special ability called Primal Portent. So when you gain the primacy token, choose one friendly fighter. That fighter is inspired. So
Mm-hmm.
very similar to Morgwaite's Blade Coven and Thundrick's Profiteers,
Yeah.
where there are alternate conditions required that are centric around your leader to inspire. So keeping Hedkrakka alive is very important. There's also a Primal Surge special rule. Primal Surge states after an activation in which this fighter's attack action takes an enemy fighter out of action, gain the primacy token. So for those
Yeah.
of you who are unfamiliar, um, the only way you can get primacy is if you hold 4 objectives, you eliminate the enemy leader via an attack action, or you one-shot an enemy leader, which means you remove them from the board with them having no previous wound tokens. But in this warband, you just got to kill things, and if you kill things, regardless of their wound tokens or not, you can get primacy.
And importantly, the normal primacy rules have to happen during an activation, whereas this it seems like can happen at any time. So if you have a card that lets you get an attack action, that'll work as well. So basically, that and getting around the one shot um, requirement is pretty good.
Yeah, very good clarification. Very good point. Um, I don't know if they have a brutal reprisal type card yet, but if they do,
I think they
that can
have
help.
something like it.
Yeah, they probably do. Let's jump to his inspired side. So let's say you get the primacy token. Your god of Gork is inspired, and
Hmm.
his staff becomes more accurate with 3 fury. So he actually becomes the most accurate staff wielder in the game. The Bone Crusher magical attack stays the same. However, the Crushing special rule goes to plus 2 damage.
Hmm.
So if he headbutts you from run range away, he deals 3 damage off a magic attack, which is pretty cool. Very very cool actually. That's what the helmet's for.
Yeah.
Primal Portent, same rule there. Primal Surge still there. He goes to 4 move, retains the 2 dodge and the 4 wounds. So Headcrack is pretty cool. He can do some range attacks. He can headbutt people from right in their face, and is a very important piece to your warband, similar to Thundrick and Morgwaith, in that if you want the other guys to inspire, you're going to need Headcrakka alive for at least the initial part of the game. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. I think in general, he is a solid fighter before he inspires. Um, I think a lot of the time you're going to want to use that melee attack version of the Bone Crusher because 2 focus is going to be more accurate than 2 fury on the Wargog staff. But once he inspires, I think that's when he really his power really starts to open up because 3 damage on the melee attack version of the Bone Crusher is great, and then 3 fury range 2 damage is also very good. Um, Importantly, things like great strength, I don't think will work on the Bone Crusher because it's range 3, so he'll definitely want Glory Seeker to boost that up.
Mm-hmm.
But great strength works fine on the Wargog staff, so I think it's still an option there. Um, I guess we'll have to look at the other fighters to know whether or not you'll want to inspire him right away. But I like having to make choices and stuff, and being able to inspire the fighter that you want at the time you want is pretty cool. So I think he's a pretty solid leader so far.
Yeah, and that 2 dodge is really nice. So
Hmm.
he doesn't necessarily need, as you're saying, to inspire quickly or be first, because he's pretty survivable with 2 dodge and 4 wounds. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
he's pretty much Lady Hero on defense.
Yeah. I mean that bottom stat line is a great one.
Yeah. Okay, well let's jump to Tooth Dagger. Tooth Dagger is a hunter. He is 3 move, 1 dodge, 4 wounds. and he's got Tooth Daggers Daggers. So, uh,
In case we didn't know whose daggers those were,
exactly.
yeah.
They're range 1, 3 fury, 2 damage. So, pretty solid
Yeah.
profile. Very orky. I like it. He's very similar to Thug, which is funny because Thug always hits more for me, ironically. So, he's got the Primal Surge special rule as well. I think it was written on his card, but it's on all their cards.
Hmm.
And Tireless Trackers. At the start of the first round, choose up to 2 other friendly hunters and push each chosen fighter 1 hex towards an enemy leader. That's pretty cool. We're going to get back to that in a second. Uh, when Tooth Dagger inspires, his attack profile goes to 4 fury, sticks at 2 damage though. So he's very, very accurate. He reminds me of Iron Hail actually a lot. And he's got this rule called Savage. On a critical hit, this attack has +1 damage. Actually, so that's very similar to
Hmm.
that other, like the Anguished one or something, or the Screaming Maiden.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually is.
Yeah, very similar, very, very big similarities there. And then he goes to 4 move and 2 dodge. So, Jonathan, what do you think about Tooth Dagger?
I like him a lot. I mean, the tireless tracker's ability is pretty amazing, really. It gets around being diagonal boarded, I think, for this warband because they're relatively slow. But being able to slide 2 of the fighters closer, I think, is very powerful. Um, Towards the enemy leader, I feel like will almost always just be wherever you want. So I'm not too concerned about that. Um, it'll just have to be forward. So um, yeah, I think he's really good. I think his inspired side is kind of scary as well because with once you're at 4 dice, you're going to start to crit a lot, and then there's so much other accuracy in the game. Um, I feel like probably going to be able to crit quite a bit, and then there's a lot of damage in the game right now too, so it won't be that hard to boost him up to the point he needs to kind of just be a missile at people.
Yeah, one thing I really like about the Savage is that you don't need to put Fighter's Ferocity on him. So maybe you can use it for
Yeah.
Daco or another fighter, or you can just stick it on him as well and do like +3 damage when you roll a crit.
Yeah.
So it's pretty nasty. I really, really like him. He gives me strong, I guess, Iron Hail vibes, which I'm a fan of. Uh, and I think that he's going to be someone that you're going to want to prioritize when you're playing against this warband. Um, I guess one cool thing about tireless trackers is if you don't mind being aggressive with your leader or extremely defensive, then you can
Hmm.
just stick your leader in the back or like maybe shift him over to the right and then put the rest of your warband on the left. And then so the move is kind of almost it's still an amazing push, right? But the
Yeah.
push is maybe not as efficient as it could be. So I like the fact that there's counterplay there. And then of course if you're playing against like Morgok or Malog or Hrothgorn, then I don't know if you're gonna want to push up too much, I think. So
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, that's true.
very cool. Do you want to go over Wall Up the Skull? I just need to give my brother something at the door. So
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. The next fighter is Wallop the Skull. He is a hunter, and his weapon is the Big Champa. It is range 1, 2 smash, 2 damage with the Leveler special rule. It is +1 damage if the target has a wound characteristic of 4 or more. So basically a built-in Glory Seeker, which is pretty cool. Stat-wise, Wallop the Skull has move 3, 1 dodge, and 4 wounds rather. And this fighter also has the Primal Surge, so if they get a kill, then they'll get the primacy. Um, so this is pretty cool. I think Wallop is maybe the best fighter off the get-go because of the built-in Glory Seeker. Um, and you're back. um,
and I'm back.
I was just saying
Um,
that I went over his uninspired side and saying I like that uninspired side. I think it's probably the maybe my favorite uninspired fighter. If you are just going to make a charge, um,
mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty good because of the built-in Glory Seeker.
Yeah, Leveler is a
Um,
very cool special role.
Once inspired, Wallop gains 1 move, cleave on the attack, and Lucky Warpaint, which means you can re-roll 1 dice in the fighter's defense rolls. So a little bit more durable, not quite as durable as the other 2, but solid, I guess.
Yeah, I actually really like that special rule because it's very thematic. If you're familiar with Savage Orcs,
Hmm.
they literally just put lucky. They don't believe in armor. They just put on Warpaint and they believe that'll be enough to protect them. And so
And if they believe it, it is.
that's true. So one dodge might not necessarily be like the best, but it's very similar to Wild Hunt, right?
Yeah.
So every once in a while you'll get the dodge or the crit. So having two chances at it isn't really bad at all. And you got 4 wounds, so you can tank hopefully at least one hit beforehand.
Yeah, it's a nice bonus. I think having the move and having the cleave is nice. I think the cleave is obviously a little situational, um, and the move could be nice as well. So I would say I would generally prioritize inspiring Wallop later in the game. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so far Daga is my biggest
Yeah.
target for inspiring because you really want him to get to that 2 dodge
Hmm.
and that 4 fury. But I like Wallop a
And the
lot.
bonus damage. He's just he gets so much on his inspired side. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I really do think Wallop is a really fun fighter, um,
Hmm.
but he doesn't really gain much aside from the move and the dodge and cleave.
Yeah, I think in this warband, not needing to inspire him to activate like his cool aspects is actually like a plus for him.
Yeah,
Because you're only going to have so many inspired chances, in that first, second round. So
yeah.
it's cool.
And I guess did you mention that he's a hunter as well?
Yeah, I did. And I guess we didn't mention that the leader is not a hunter.
Yeah.
So for Tufdaga, he can basically push, I guess, the other two or himself, I think.
Two other. So he,
Oh,
he just
so
gets a
it's
free
only
push
the
for
other two.
Dako and Wallop.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of the other fighter, we'll go to Dako Sharpsticka. He's a hunter. He's got a Stingabo, 3 range, 2 fury, 1 damage. Has a special rule called lots of R's. R's. Lots of R's. Reaction after this fighter's activation. If this fighter has no move or charge token, make this attack action, then give this fighter 1 charge token. So essentially, if you just make a normal attack action, you can just shoot again. And then you get a charge token.
Yeah. Yeah.
So pretty balanced, I think. Very neat. And he's got 3 move, 1 dodge, 4 wounds. Same rule as Primal Tracker when you inspire him. His Sting of Bow goes to 3 fury, still 1 damage, still has lots of R's. Um, and he's got the lucky Warpaint as well. So his bottom stat line goes to 4 move, 1 dodge, 4 wounds, but he can reroll that 1 dodge.
And did
What
we
do you
go
think
over the
about?
primal tracker ability?
Oh, we didn't. We didn't. Primal Tracker after this fighter's move action. If this fighter holds an objective in enemy territory, and there are no enemy fighters within 2 hexes, gain the primacy token.
Yeah, very
Very
interesting. And he
important.
and he does not have the primal surge ability. I guess I missed that. Um, so yeah, that's interesting. It seems like it could situationally be a good way to get primacy, and I'm sure if you set up the board in a particular way so that you can just move him on right away, that could be a nice way to move him in and then get Tooth Dagger inspired or something like that. So that's cool.
Yeah, I really like the fact that you have to play aggressive with him in order to get the primacy. It's not really passive.
Yeah,
So you jump in enemy territory and you claim that objective. You make yourself a target, but then you get primacy. And it makes sense that he doesn't have uh, primal surge because he has a bow
yeah,
and it's only doing 1 damage, maybe 2 if he hits 2 in a row. Um, but aside from that, I think he's like your primacy guy in the beginning of the game, which helps you inspire Tooth Dagger. And then from there, you probably make him a weapon caddy and
yeah.
go off. Or I guess if times are desperate, you can give him Glory Seeker Fighter's Ferocity, and then maybe he can do 2, 3 damage attacks in a row.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I think it's cool that he kind of has a very aggressive focus because once he goes in, then he'll probably be in range of something, and then he can make that double attack, um, which I think is pretty powerful. So,
As long as
he,
he has no move or charge tokens, yeah. So in following
yeah,
rounds.
yeah. So he'd have to be, yeah, you'd have to have him set up for that second round. He does get a charge token after that too. So I don't know. It's interesting. Hmm. I guess he definitely likes weapons, and then he can make a weapon attack and then a ranged attack. I think.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, actually, so lots of R's is a reaction to the Sting of Bow.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah. You're right.
so you wouldn't be able to do that. You would just
Yeah.
essentially, I think you just give him Hammerbone's sword,
Hmm.
and then you whack something, and then you get good glory out of it, and then that's probably it. Maybe like
Yeah,
a soul tooth spear or something like that as well.
that's true. He would like the spears because then he could make a ranged attack, and then if he still wanted to use the bow later, he could. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. And maybe an amber bone spear or something like that.
yeah. So
It's cool.
overall, I think some really cool fighters. Do you have a favorite?
Hmm. I think Tooth Dag is probably my favorite from an overall power perspective.
Yeah,
Um, he's a strong boy.
yeah. He's a big, strong boy who's watched way too many X-Men movies. Um, I think for me, I really like Hedkrakka. I know Wallop has a really cool leveler ability, but I love the melee magical attack,
Hmm.
and he reminds me of he's important. He's just as important as Thundrick. So I
Yeah.
like the fact that you have to keep him alive to do well with the warband, but the other fighters aren't that. They have still decent profiles to where if you lose him, God forbid, very quickly, you still have some play. I just think you really need to get Tooth Dag inspired. So um, big fan of the
Yeah.
way this warband operates. Though they are more at risk because they are ranged 1 and 2 fighters for the most part and want to be in enemy territory and are aggressive. So can't really sit back and play safe with Thundrick, or you can, but you can't do it with Hedkrakka.
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot harder for them to do that. So yeah, and I think they have relatively good base stats, pretty good base attacks. So yeah, I think they seem solid so far. Interestingly, they will, I guess, always have access to primacy. So um, that's kind of cool as well.
Yeah, that
Just
is
like the
interesting, isn't it?
vampires.
Yeah, they'll always, even if and when primacy goes away,
Yeah.
like 3 seasons from now, they'll still be playing with primacy, which is kind of cool. And who knows? It could always come back, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, absolutely.
but why don't you kick us off with the objective cards here? I think it
Sure.
starts with in alphabetical order. So,
Yeah, so the first one is biggest and meanest. Score this in an end phase if a surviving friendly fighter has a higher wound characteristic than each other surviving fighter. What do you think about that?
yeah, so this is for 1 glory. I think this is pretty
Yeah, one more.
similar to some of the other cards that there are out there.
Mm-hmm.
In the current meta, I think this is actually not a good card, given the fact that Malog, Hrothgorn, and Crutches are very popular.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, even
also, a
Dread
lot of
Pageant.
even Dread Pageant, correct, and also interestingly, a lot of fighters and a lot of warbands in Dire Chasm have 4 wound fighters.
Hmm.
Um, so unless your meta is very object like a horde based, I don't know if this is a good card. Um, Maybe if you're taking a lot of wound upgrades, then you can probably score this as some passive glory in the end. But for me, I think it's very very average.
Yeah. Yeah, I think basically you're gonna have to have a wound upgrade to score this most of the time, so it's okay. Um, Next one is Bring It On. It's a surge, a duel. Score this immediately after an activation if an enemy fighter made an attack action in that activation that targeted a friendly fighter as a part of a charge action, and that friendly fighter is not out of action. Wow, for 1 glory.
Yeah, so this is pretty chill. You're going to be aggressive. You're going to try to kill them. Best way for them to stop you from killing them is killing you.
Yep.
So if you take some damage from an attack action, as long as they charged you, which I
I don't
think is
even
what
think you
this
have to
is.
take the damage.
That's true. As long as you take an attack action
Yeah.
from a charge, and your fighter ends up not being out of action after the fact, you can get a free glory. Interesting thing is that if you're charging into their territory, they may not necessarily have to charge you back. I think
Yeah.
eventually this card will be scored in your game. I think the challenge I have with cards like these is that you can't control when you score it. You're reliant on the enemy. It's kind of like Steadfast Defender, where like
Hmm.
it's not a bad card, but if your opponent doesn't do what you want them to do, this will clog your hand and block you up. So, for that reason, I think it's a very neat card. It makes a lot of thematic sense, but I don't know if I take this just because my opponent can. Your opponent never does what you want them to do, right? So I
Yeah.
don't know. It'll just stress me out that it's just in my hand.
I do think this is probably the best of this type of card. Like it's probably one of the best cards your opponent is going to score for you. And I think particularly early game, it could be a very good source of initial glory. Uh, but I know what you mean. I could see situations later on when maybe it takes a few activations for it to happen.
Yeah. And nowadays, like everyone's preparing for 4 wounds or more. So like,
Yeah.
let's say they do charge you, they just kill your fighter.
Yeah. Yeah. Later on in the game, that could definitely happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one is Dead Sneaky Surge for 1 glory. Score this immediately after resolving your warband's second or subsequent reaction in the same phase. I think we just saw this card for the Skinks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think generally it's a pretty good card.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that looking at their fighter cards, there's only one
Mm-hmm.
fighter with a reaction built in, and that's Daco.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, you can get his lots of errors out, um, and that would be one of the ways that you could do it. But really, you're relying on a universal card pool. So like
Yeah.
very easy. Snare is probably a really good one for this warband because you have 3 hunters.
Yeah.
Um, and so just keep that in mind. Um, if you're going to be using cards with reactions like maybe Mortis Relics, then Dead Sneaky is pretty solid. Um,
Yeah.
but otherwise, you just keep in mind that you need to support it because you can't do it alone. Because after Daco does his, he gets a charge token.
Yeah, and even Daco's reaction is somewhat situational because someone has to be in range for him to use it. He can't just charge or move and then
Yeah.
shoot. So, yeah, I think that's a good point. The next one is also a Surge called Here We Go. Surge Hybrid for 1 glory. Score this immediately after an activation if each surviving friendly fighter is in enemy territory or each surviving friendly fighter has one or more charge tokens. What do you think about that?
I like this one a lot. This combos really well with Show of Force. It reminds me of No Escape from Magor's Fiends as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as long as everyone's charging, you're ready to go. Exactly like the
Yeah.
card states. Um, but then also like later in the game, since you're gonna be aggressive, you're gonna play for primacy, and a lot of those cards revolve eliminating fighters or being in enemy territory. I think this is a great surge later on because even if you have one fighter left, boom, 1 glory.
Yeah. Yeah, it's better than the Magor version for that reason, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I would definitely take that one. The next one is Eye of Gorka Morka. It's a duel for 1 glory. Score this in an end phase if you have the primacy token and your leader holds an objective. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I don't know if he's choking the snake out, by the way. That's kind of funny. But in the card art, they both look like they're having a good time. So the this is an interesting card, right? So more likely than not, you will have the primacy token with this warband. Um,
Yeah.
I think unless someone's doing some proud runner shenanigans or is taking maybe feign weakness or feign strength, which you might take feign strength, by the way.
Yeah.
Then I think this is a pretty decent warband. Your leader holding an objective. I don't know if there's much incentive to hold an objective, right? So maybe if you charge onto an objective, maybe you take bold conquest along with this. Um, again, not a bad card, not one that's hard to score. I just don't know if it's like fluid with your game plan, right? It might just
Yeah.
force you to, instead of making an attack action or charging, to just be like, I'm gonna move Hedkrakka to this, and then you telegraph the hell out of this as well. So
Yeah.
it's something to consider, but it's really cool, especially if you're trying to play set the tempo. The fact that there's so many duels being added. I think this is the second duel of the set. We're only halfway
Hmm.
through, so this could be something that pans out with that as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. The next one is Great Hunters. 3 glory hybrid. Score this in the third end phase if each surviving friendly fighter is in enemy territory and you have the primacy token, or there is no more than one surviving enemy fighter. What do you think about
So
that?
I think this is a really cool end phase score for them. Third end phase,
Mm-hmm.
as we all know, clogs the power hand. It can brick, etc., or the objective hand. But if you happen to draw it late or you decide to hold on to it, this is really cool because
Yeah.
again, you're most likely going to have the primacy token, and you're most likely going to have every fighter in enemy territory. The And if you have every fighter in enemy territory for most of the game, it probably means that you're killing enemy fighters. So I think there's a lot of ways in which you can score this. It's actually pretty reliable for a third end phase score,
Yeah.
honestly. Um, I just don't know if it's better than maybe Set the Tempo again as a great example, because Set the Tempo can be scored in the second round, and there will be games in which you will score it in the second round, whereas Great
Yeah.
Hunters will always be in the third end phase.
Yeah, same with like
So
Avatar, which I don't think these guys are terrible at.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, good
so
point.
so yeah, I think it's playable. I think what I don't like about it is that because you do have to have the primacy token, there will just be some percentage of games when the opponent is able to take it from you and you're not able to take it back, and then even if it just makes it a little bit harder than I like. So, um, but yeah. So the next one is Green Fury. It says Surge, one glory. Score this immediately after an activation in which a friendly fighter with one or more wound counters made one or more successful attack actions. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so this is interesting, right? I think I think it's a So it's a fun card. It's not bad. It can be scored quite often.
It's almost
Um,
calculated risk, but it requires that charge or an
exactly.
attack. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking is you can just charge through a lethal, but do you want to? Because going from 4 to 3 is a big deal,
Yeah.
right? Now, um, again, it's a possibility. It's something that makes it kind of, um,
Yeah. I
you
think it's
know,
cool that it's I think it's cool that it's like a more balanced version of calculated risk, and because it's in this warband, I remember back when calculated risk was in almost every deck. The one kind of deck people would not put it in was small fighters, so like small warband fighters, where they didn't want their fighter to take that 1 point of damage. So I think if this was a universal, I would not be happy, but if it was for these guys, I think it's pretty cool.
yeah. This is actually really good for like a Seraphon or a Grimwatch, right?
Oh
Because it
man,
also
yeah,
denies the primacy as well.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I think for them it's pretty okay.
Hmm.
I think people are gonna try it,
Yeah.
and some people are really gonna like it, but most people will be like, you know what, this just is not efficient, and I might look elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it just depends what other cards there are. I think that there would be some turns when you have this in the first round, you charge with Daco, he charges onto an objective, and you score this, and you inspire somebody. And then, honestly, after Daco does that, he's not that useful. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you don't mind that he took a damage, but yeah, it's interesting. The next one is Heralds of the Wog. Score this in an end phase if each surviving friendly fighter is inspired for one glory. What do you think about that?
Yeah, these kind of cards are hard. I think,
Yeah.
um, uh, especially because you're reliant on your leader being alive and then getting primacy, and then
Hmm.
your opponent can just kill your inspired fighters, or your leaders. So I'm not really sure. I don't think it's a good card for the warband, um, unless you've
Yeah.
got a lot of like passive primacy gain, which I think you can build a pretty decent amount in your deck. For that reason, I think I like this is like a C for me.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
okay.
If this was two glory, then it might be a little bit different. I think it is hard
Yeah.
to inspire these fighters. You're going to have to use, or it's hard to inspire them all. Um, even over the course of a game, you might not gain primacy 4 times. So you may have to use cards or fighters may need to die to score this. Um, so yeah. The next one is Hunt the World Spirit. It is a hybrid for 2 glory. Score this in an end phase if your warband holds 2 or more objectives and you have the primacy token, or your warband holds 3 or more objectives. So it's pretty interesting. It's kind of like Path to Victory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't think you're ever going to score this off holding three or more objectives. So really, this card
Yeah.
is too glory for holding two objectives, and you have the primacy token. I don't think that it's hard to hold two objectives with a four fighter warband. I think over the course of Dire Chasm and End of Beastgrave, we saw that this strategy is quite viable.
Hmm.
The challenge with this is that you're going to have opponents who are running like dominant position in other
Yeah.
cards, so they're going to be wanting to kick you off objectives. If you just so happen to line up your objectives, however, where you can get your charges in and you're holding objectives, then I think this is actually not a bad card. Um, I really want to like this more than I am right now, but I think this is actually pretty difficult still and very telegraphed. Because why would you ever be on two objectives other than with Daco, right? Because you want to get primacy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can maybe do a sneaky charge in the fourth activation, this could be something that I think you can benefit from passively, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I like that they have it because it does sort of give them an option for hold objective play if that's what they want to do. I think they probably have better options, but I think you could probably take this and Glorious Triumph and Path to Victory and Dominant Position, and you'd be able to do something with that. I just think that they're probably better focusing on a more aggro strategy, but
Yeah.
um, I like the design of it. The
I
next
do think
one,
Glorious Triumph is actually a great call out. It wasn't even thinking about that, um, which definitely helps scoring this. So
yeah.
that actually makes me think about it a little bit more. But again, it's relying on that one card. But maybe you can just sneak it through early in the game too. So yeah, I think it's better than I initially was giving it credit for. But still, I'm not sure.
I think you'd have to build very specifically for it, and we'll just have to see, what the meta is like as as we play these guys. But I just think it's cool they have the option because a two glory card that is scoreable isn't bad. So
Agreed.
the next one is Smash 'em Hybrid for two glory. Score this in an end phase if two or more enemy fighters are out of action and you have the primacy token, or three or more enemy fighters are out of action. So I like this one a lot more.
Yeah, I like this one a lot too. It depends on how many Morgoks there are running around in the meta, but
Yeah.
um, I think I think this is really good. I love the I love the flexibility here. So if you're flying a Horde Warband, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, and I think this is actually much better if you play against a Horde Warband because you're probably gonna have primacy, so you get that first condition easier. If you're playing against a more elite Warband, I think eventually throughout the course of the game, you will probably take two out, and then you can just use a card or one of your abilities to get primacy, and I think you'll be fine. Especially because if you're killing an enemy fighter because of Primal Surge, you're just getting the primacy token,
Right.
so that can maybe help you score this. So I like this one too. I think it's really interesting that they have both of these two Glory End Phase cards, and there's another one later that we'll talk about. But I like the fact that these options are here, and I can
Yeah.
see you actually taking Hunt the World Spirit and Smash them both in a deck, right? So
Yeah, you
that
certainly
is
could.
it's a great sign for the warband just in general from a faction perspective.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point about the fact that they can use their special ability to get the primacy because in the Crusher matchup, which normally this card would be bad against, they probably will get the primacy every time they kill a Crusher, um,
Exactly.
which is really cool. Yeah, and that's usually one of the Crusher's strengths against a primacy strategy. So
Mm-hmm.
very cool. The next card is Stab, Stab, Stat. Surge Hybrid for one glory. Score this immediately after an activation in which a friendly fighter made a successful attack with Cleave that targeted a fighter who was on guard or had a block characteristic. Or made an attack action that took an enemy fighter with a higher wound characteristic than that friendly fighter out of action. That was a lot to read. um, what do you
Yeah,
think?
I remember when this card was previewed, people were like complaining about like the wall of text, but I actually think it's a very concisely and well worded card. So I
Sure.
really do appreciate the effort here. Um, your only fighter that has cleave is Wallop when inspired,
Mm-hmm.
so keep that in mind when looking to score this card. Um, Jonathan's not the biggest fan of cleave, and I'm not sure if there are any like really efficient cleave cards right now, so that might be difficult. Um, but I really think the fighter with a higher wounds characteristic than a friendly fighter, that's also really tough given the fact that there's such a wide spread of warbands. So while I ultimately really like the design of this card, having less access to cleave and then not necessarily knowing if you're ever going to fight a warband with a higher wounds characteristic than four, um, that makes
Yeah.
it to where I'm not really sure if I put this in my deck for reliability purposes. However, if I'm putting a lot of cleave in my deck, then I think this is a pretty good card. It's pretty much like a what armor with a little bit more limitations. Um, so it's something to consider. But right now, I'm very lukewarm on it. In
Yeah,
fact,
me
I don't know
too.
if I'm even lukewarm. Room temperature.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. The next one, and the last one, is Weird Omens. Duel for two glory. Score this in an end phase if there are one or more friendly fighters in your territory, in no one's territory, and in enemy territory, and you have the primacy token. What do you think about that?
It's really interesting. I really like it. It like makes me want to think to how to score this consistently. Um,
Hmm.
the if it was just enemy territory and no one and your territory, much better card. Super good card. Very strong card. The no one's territory is really throwing me off. But I think you can do it. But because of that one sentence right in the middle of the text, it goes from like a B in my head to like a C.
Yeah, you also have to have primacy, which I know we think these guys are good at it, but I would still say there probably will be one round where the enemy's able to take it and keep it, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, and I guess it also kind of works against some of the other cards, like, was it Here We Go for having everybody in enemy territory, or
Yeah.
the Great Hunters for having everybody in enemy territory. So, I don't know, but I feel like there would be this, the scoreability of this one in the first round is pretty high. So I do like that about
Yeah. I mean, let no mistake be made here. Like this
it.
warband, definitely you're gonna just stack all the be an enemy territory cards and go to town,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But our goal is to make sure that you can see how some of these cards may be played. Um, and so I think Weird Omens is a cool card, but with the
Hmm.
current universal pool out there, you're probably not gonna play it. Um,
Yeah,
but it's something to consider, I think.
yeah, and maybe Weird Omens goes well in a Hunt the Spirit world deck, um, where
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're not just being aggressive, but
Yeah.
and it also forces you to commit a little bit less. If you're against another deck that's doing the enemy territory stuff, then maybe maybe you actually want, maybe Weird Omens is better. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Do
See,
you have a favorite? What's your favorite omen?
my favorite omen.
Is it weird?
um, hmm. I guess it might be Here We Go. I feel like that's, or I think it's might be Bring It On. I think I'm gonna play a lot of that one.
You really like cards like that. Um,
Yeah, I mean I like Steadfast Defender, so to me this is like it's a free version. So
the Ferrari of steadfast
yeah,
defenders.
yeah, yeah,
I like smash them. I like to end phase
yeah,
glory, and
yeah,
killing stuff isn't a bad idea, especially when you're a savage orc.
yeah,
Cool. Well, I think overall the objective cards are a pretty mixed bag. I think they're fair. I think there's some good ones in here.
yeah,
There's some ones that are challenging, and then there are ones that are like pretty middle of the road. But I think the interesting thing with this warband is that it's not as obvious from their faction cards as to which direction maybe you can go with them.
hmm,
And so while there are some clear winners, I definitely think all of these could see play. Like I don't think any of them are just straight up bad, and that's important to me. So
yeah, yeah. I think all of these are scoreable, which means that if you have it in your hand, you can probably figure out how to score it. I think when you get into like a competitive deck situation, you want your whole deck to sort of be scoreable at once, and that can be where some of these start to become too much work or too situational.
yeah,
But I think that really all you can ask of a warband is to have like two surges and two end phase cards you really think about, and I think these guys have that,
yeah,
and maybe even a few more. So
maybe even a third Fen phase.
yeah,
You never
yeah.
know.
So
Okay, well let's
pretty
jump to
cool.
the yeah, very very cool. I like what I'm seeing so far. Let's jump to the gambits.
Hmm.
So interesting thing to note, I think, is every time we have a wizard in a warband, two of the gambits are spells.
Yeah,
So I
that
think it's
seems like a
always
good
two.
policy.
Yeah. And it does, right? So first one is Brutal Beast Spirits. Gambit spell, Focus. If cast, +1 move to friendly fighters in the next activation when they make a charge, and +1 dice to friendly fighters attack actions the next activation made as part of a charge action. What do you think?
It's an interesting spell. I guess I don't think they had any objectives at all related to casting spells. So
It's orky magic is not reliable.
yeah. So
Even Dave Sanders knows that.
I like the effect. +1 move situationally could be pretty good, and then +1 dice is pretty good. But I don't think it's what we want in the current meta with all the speed package stuff, because it doesn't really help you with that. Um, and I think there are better ways to get +1 dice. So I'd probably give it a skip. But in a faction deck, I think it'll go off half the time, and or 75% of the time, really. And then you get a nice bonus. So
Yeah, I think I really want to like this card because going to 4 move and like 3 smash or 4 fury or 5 fury in some cases
Yeah.
is really good. Um, it's the focus that kind of hurts me.
Hmm.
But even then on 2 dice, it's really not bad. I think you're
No.
right that there's some universal options out there, but I don't know. This is kind of a sneaky one, and your leader is going to be well protected in theory, so it's not bad. I don't know. You're probably
Yeah.
right. There's more efficient stuff outside of this faction deck, but I really like Magic, and I think it's kind of a sneaky one that you can kind of pile in if you really want accuracy and initiative cards, right? So,
Right.
and this on an inspired fighter can score you gathered momentum as well. So, something to think about.
Yeah, that's true.
The big wah. This probably goes my award to best card art in the set. They are Super Saiyan Rock Concert big wah energy right now. So +1 dice to a friendly fighter's range 1 attack action in the next activation. If you have the primacy token when you play this card, this effect persists until you lose the primacy token or at the end of the round. What do you think?
I definitely like the design space of this card. Um, I like that you basically choose like if the other player goes first and then it's your first power step. Do you use this to try to get the primacy, or do you wait until you have the primacy and then get the buff for the entire rest of the round? I think that kind of decision making is really cool. Um, I think you consider this card right now. I think that as far as ploys go, there's not really a clearly better option. Like victimize can sometimes be better. Um, but not always. And then if you can get this off for the third activation, the second activation, and then you get 3 activations worth, I think that's pretty good. So
Yeah, I think getting 1 dice in general is fine. You know,
yeah,
it's the fact that if you can get this twice, then it's worth it.
right.
And I think you can with this warband. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of primacy shenanigans going back and forth now. Um,
Hmm.
but I really like the fact that you could, in theory, build for this. Feign strength, play this card, and then until your opponent kills one of your fighters or holds 4 objectives, which is very hard, um, you're
Yeah,
in a great spot.
yeah, that's true. If you have cards that are also giving you the primacy token, then I think it makes it even better. So
Yeah. Next card is the Great Stomp. Push each friendly fighter up to 1 hex towards the nearest enemy fighter. Pretty solid.
I love it.
Good. I'm
it's
glad you
it's
do.
it's a really really good card. Yeah.
It's a very good card. And there's no limitation as well on enemy territory or wherever, so very
Yep.
strong card.
Just has to be towards the nearest, which sometimes can be not exactly what you want, but
Yeah, but you're probably gonna play it when you know exactly what you want is gonna happen,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah, yeah, sure.
second spell of the deck, Cunnin, Beast Spirits. Gambit spell, Channel, love it. If cast, +1 defense to friendly fighters in the next activation. What do you think?
I think the only reason to take this card over some, other cards that exist, is just if you want to be casting spells. And I don't know if that's something that this warband really cares about. I guess we'll have to see what else they have to offer or what the universal pool offers. So um, I'm not a big fan of this one.
Yeah, yeah. The next activation part kind of makes it hard.
Yeah.
Um, if it was like this persists until you lose the
Oh yeah.
primacy token or something like that, then it'd be like, yo, dude, just put this in my deck every time. But
Yeah,
I think the better of the 2 spells is brutal, and it's a focus. So I don't know.
I
Something
agree.
to consider. Never Tiring is the next card. +1 move to friendly fighters in the next activation. If you have the primacy token when you play this card, this effect persists until you lose the primacy token or until the end of the round.
Yeah, so I like this one. It's sort of the same design space as the Big Wog. Um, I just don't like it as much. I think that in general, it's a pretty good card. I think the issue with it in the current meta is that like Spectral Wings is just better. Um, Something like that is just going to be better. So I would probably give it a skip, but it's a very very playable card. It
Yeah,
just doesn't have a lot
playable.
of synergy with other things.
No, no. I think you're absolutely correct. Spectral Wings and Outrun Death are just better.
Yeah.
Primal Brutality is the next card. Pick one. Gain the primacy token or discard the primacy token. If you discard the primacy token, choose one friendly fighter with no charge tokens. That chosen fighter makes one range 1 or range 2 attack action. Then give the chosen fighter one charge token. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, well, we've been talking about how maybe this warband would take Feign Strength, and I think maybe they don't, and they take this instead. um, because Feign Strength is going to make you lose the primacy at the end, and maybe they don't want to have to do that.
Right.
Um, this one, they just get it. And then if they already have it, they can potentially get an attack off, which can potentially give it right back to them, which is pretty cool. So you could theoretically, you already have it, and then you get an attack, you get a kill, you get it back. Maybe you score something off of getting it back, and you inspire somebody else. So um, a lot of pretty cool potential there, I think, for this one.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I like the flexibility here. Pretty much
Yeah.
it says inspire one fighter or you get a free out of action attack action, which is pretty cool.
But you might also just score Surge of Aggression for playing this card. And then you'll
Yeah.
apply Glory Seeker onto whoever, and then you hit somebody for 4 damage. So
Yeah.
uh, I think this is pretty. I think this is a pretty good card for them.
Yeah. I think one of the things I was referring to with Feign Strength is you can play Feign Strength. You can then get the primacy token, inspire someone, and then use
Mm-hmm.
this to spend it immediately after.
Oh
And
yeah,
then get that free attack action as well. There is a limitation that you're absolutely correct that if you have the primacy token in the action range, you have to discard it.
yeah,
But so that might be one of the reasons why you don't play Feign Strength with the Warband. But I think I like it just because it's like a free inspire.
yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
Primal Cunning is the next card. Choose one friendly fighter. Then, if you have the primacy token, you can give the primacy token to an opponent. Push the chosen fighter 1 hex, or up to 3 hexes if you gave the primacy token to an opponent. So really, it's
Yeah.
just like a sidestep or commanding stride if you give the opponent your primacy token.
Yeah, and I like this one quite a bit for the same reason as Primal Brutality. When you're giving it to your opponent, you're doing so probably with the intention to immediately take primacy right back.
Agreed.
So you'll play this, you'll push your leader next to somebody, you'll hit him for 3 damage, and you'll take it back. So, uh, yeah, I think
And it
that's
doesn't even have to
really
be your
cool.
leader, right? Like you can just
Yeah,
push any fighter, 3 hexes next to that fighter,
yeah,
smack them, get glory, get primacy, inspire, probably score something else. Yeah, it's really neat
yeah.
in its application. Will it always work out that way? Probably not, but something to think about.
Yeah.
Next card, Strange Portents. In the next activation, Fury is smash,
Hmm.
dodge is block, and focus is channel, and vice versa for all three of those. What do you think?
So this is a really interesting one. Like it's actually a really good accuracy boost if you use it in the best case scenario, which is going to be if you're going from Fury to Smash and going from from block to
To
dodge.
dodge, yeah,
Yeah, so normally a 3 Fury attack is 55% against 1 block. If you use this card, now you're on 74%, which is
I like it.
pretty incredible. This is great for Tooth Daga. Um, it's actually good for everybody uninspired except for um, Wallop. Wallop doesn't really like this one much, but everybody else likes this one. I think quite a bit. I think this is actually a really good accuracy card. Um,
I think so too, and I really like the fact that you can turn your leader's head crack attack into like two lightning, two channel. That's pretty accurate. Then, like that's probably one of the
yeah,
most accurate melee attacks in the game.
and even if you are giving them block instead of dodge, um, it's still a pretty good
Yeah,
attack. It goes up to 70% there from like 50 something.
yeah. Like imagine
So
imagine like a Mollog coming in with like two smash,
yeah,
and he's trying to go for your leader who's on two dodge. You change your attack action to two block and his to two fury. So I think the applications here are very cool.
yeah, and you can also use it defensively. I don't think it's quite as good there, um, but yeah,
You never know; it could work out.
yeah. I guess having your leader or two tag be 2 block is kind of neat.
Yeah, man. Like if someone's coming at you for like 4 or 5 damage with two smash, you turn their
Yeah,
smash into fury, and
yeah.
your survivability goes through the roof. Um, Next card is Unhinged Ferocity. So this is a reaction. So that's gonna help you score um, that reaction card, the Dead Sneaky. Um, use this after a friendly fighter's activation in which that fighter made one or more failed attack actions. If you have the primacy token, discard the primacy token. Then that fighter makes one attack action. Otherwise, inspire that fighter. So,
Wow.
essentially, if you fail an attack, you can react and inspire, or you can react and give the primacy token away or discard it,
Yeah.
and then you can pretty much get a go around, which is actually really neat because again we go. It's kind of like that despoiler effect, where like you spend the counter to get the kill to get the counter back.
Yeah.
In this situation, you're spending the token, getting the kill, getting the token back. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do here, I think. Like with the Primal Brutality. You play it, you gain the token, you inspire a fighter, and then you charge in, and then you're super accurate because if you miss, you can discard it to attack again. Yeah.
yeah,
I think there's a lot of cool like primacy combo stuff that you can pull off with these guys.
yeah, yeah. It's very very cool, very cool.
And I don't love the inspire option, but it's better than nothing. So,
Yeah, I think like if you go in with Toothdaga and you miss and you don't have
yeah.
primacy, you can inspire him at least so that he's on 2 dodge. You know.
Yeah, I think you consider it. Yeah.
Yeah. Last gambit of this section, Warpaint Ward. Reaction. So again, another reaction important for Dead Sneaky. Use this during an attack action that targets a friendly fighter before the deal damage step. Roll 1 magic dice. On a roll of a crit, the combat sequence ends. On a roll of fury, instead reduce the damage dealt. Sorry, on a roll of a focus, instead reduce the damage dealt to 1 by 1 to a minimum of 1. So, interesting card.
Yeah, basically a 50-50 to reduce by at least one, and then like a 16% chance to just not take any damage at all. Um, I think it's I think it's decent. Like it's as good or better than well, it's about as good as like Dark Destiny or something probably. You're only going to play this if you're going to lose the fighter. So, um, but I don't know if this warband needs it as much.
I think if you're playing last pages, this is a good card.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but otherwise, probably not. And I don't know if you're actually going to really buy into the last pages stuff. Like you probably take Yara's instant shield just to make your leader more survivable. But really, that's really it. So something to consider. I like the fact that it's here, and whenever this goes
hmm
off, it's kind of like a rebound almost. Like you just kind of roll the die and hope you don't take any damage, and that can win you a game.
yeah,
So something
yeah,
to think about for sure.
absolutely.
Um, Jonathan, what do you think about the set as a whole, and then which one's your favorite?
I think it's a pretty good set. I think that there's probably 4 or 5 cards here that I would consider taking. I
Mm-hmm.
think it'll be interesting to see how many of them actually make the cut. But I think Primal Brutality, Primal Cunning, Strange Portents, maybe Warpaint War, like those are all pretty cool cards. Um, I think from a new player's perspective, I think that all these cards are very very playable. So I like that. Uh, yeah, this is a really cool set of cards. I think.
Yeah, but I think one of the things I'd like to stress is that every single card here is playable, which is important to me. Because
Yeah.
like in the past, you would see cards that were like, well, this is never going to be even considered, right? Like this is going to go in
Yeah.
my sleeve or my box or my binder, and I'm never going to look at it again. But here, I think you might find something, maybe not in this season, but maybe in the next season or the season after that. Or if you want to play this warband and you're like, oh, actually this kind of works now in this season. I think you're going to see a lot of that with this warband. I'm pretty excited. Do you have a favorite Gambit?
Um, maybe Primal Brutality, just because I think there's going to be a lot of cool moments with that card.
I
I think that
also
would
like
be
how
my pick.
Clackchalk is getting wrecked on that card.
Yeah, absolutely.
That one's for you, Val. That one's for you. Um, fun side fact: I played against him yesterday in like one of the tournament games,
Yeah.
and his Clackchalk just did not hit like 2
Oh
attack
no.
actions on the row. He had like 2 rerolls as well,
Wow.
and he was like, I would have killed you if I had hit. And I was like, actually, I have 4 wall counters. I have Berserk Fortitude in hand, and I have Ferocious Resistance. Like, you weren't gonna kill my guy, but the fact that you missed so much, it sucks. No one likes missing that much. So I really felt for him, but you know, it's kind of funny. So yours is Primal Brutality. I am going to pick. I really like Unhinged Ferocity just because it makes you want to shenanigan.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I think that's going to be the most enjoyable part of this warband is the cool like power plays you can do with the primacy
Yeah.
token and the
It's
special
resource management.
effects. Yeah.
You just spend it, boom, get it back, do this, do that, inspire. I really like it.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to separate them from similar-ish warbands. Um, maybe like Magors or Ravagers or something like that.
Yeah, or even Crimson Court.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, I guess we can go to the upgrades here. The first one is Berserk Might. It says this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions have knockback 1, and then +1 damage to this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions while you have the primacy token.
Interesting card. I don't think you care about knockback at all. Um,
Yeah,
I think there's also so much +1 damage in the game right now where this card is not even worth considering the fact that you have to have the primacy token for you to get the damage. You got Feral Symbiote, you got Sting of the Urgrub, Great Strength, Savage Strength. I mean, you don't need anything else.
yeah, you got it. The next one is Green God's Glare. If looks could kill, you can re-roll 1 dice in this fighter's attack rolls for range 3 plus attack actions. It's not restricted to anyone, so it can work on the leader or
Daka.
Daka. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's pretty chill.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is something that makes the final cut, but I think if you want to give your leader a reroll for his Hedkrakka attack, or whatever
Yeah.
it's called, then great. Um, but otherwise, unless you're planning on making Dako like a Glory Seeker fighter ferocity, potentially
Yeah.
do 3 damage in one activation, which can happen and it will, and I can't wait to do it one day.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if this one enters the deck, but it's something to consider.
Yeah, I think this is one that's just going to be a card pool call depending on what the meta is like because right now we have a lot of upgrades that give you accuracy or more dice, so I don't think we really need this one. But in other previous metas or versions of the game, where I think this would have been great. So it's a good tool for them to have, I think. The next one is Killer Instinct. This fighter's range 1 attack actions have Cleave and Ensnare for Tooth Dagger. Wow.
So it's really good because essentially your opponent's defense roll becomes just 16% on each die, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is that at what point are you getting diminishing returns? And
Hmm.
when you're 4 Fury, you know, like you're pretty freaking accurate. Like your ability to roll a crit is through the roof, and you're going to be hitting more often than not.
Right.
Um, so if you're crit fishing and you're rolling 4 dice, I don't know if it matters if you have ensnare or cleave.
Yeah.
Um, it's definitely something to consider, but again, I think at one point it's not even worth it, and I think we're very close to that point, if not already there.
Yeah, and then the fact that it's restricted to him only, I think, is a downside as well. The math on Cleave and Ensnare just ends up making it about +1 dice, about as good as +1 dice, which isn't bad by any means. But it also completely shuts down guard, which is nice. But um, I don't know. This is another one where I think you just take another version of accuracy because you don't want it to be restricted. But if we're in a meta later on when there isn't as much accuracy, I think this is situationally pretty good. Um, the next one is Lucky Bone. Reaction after this fighter's attack roll, defense roll, or casting roll. Discard this card. If you do, you can reroll any number of dice in that roll.
I really like this card.
Yeah.
This is essentially a gambit. You stick this on your fighter in your opponent's power phase. You make a charge or you make an attack, and if you miss, you get a reroll. Pretty nice.
Yeah. And crucially, you get to decide to use it after you see the result of the roll, unlike
Yeah.
something like Potion of Rage. So this is, I think it's really good. And this card probably makes it so I definitely don't take Killing Instinct or the ranged attack one, Green God's Glare, because this is just better at everything. So
Yeah. Yeah, I
the
like it.
next the next one is Morkish Familiar. You could reroll 1 dice in this fighter's casting rolls, restricted to Hedkrakka. So this does make him better at spells, and it does make his melee attack pretty terrifying.
Yeah, but like, so first of all, like just comparing the two, Green God's Glare is just better than
Yeah,
Orcish Familiar because it can go on one other fighter. I guess if you're going last pages, the option's here. So I appreciate the fact that it's here because
yeah,
if you want to play a defensive last pages Madmob deck, you can. You have the tools to do it. Um,
yeah,
I'm not sold on this outside of that strategy. Even the fact that he looks like
yeah.
a an Orc Power Ranger in that card.
And that snake is kind of scary too. Yep.
Mr. Fangs.
Yep. The next one is Power of the Beast. +1 wounds and +2 wounds instead while you have the primacy token. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so if you're going to pick between Great Fortitude and this card, you just pick this card. And the
Yep.
reason being is because you have the option to go up to 2. Keep in mind, when your fighters have 6 or more wounds, that's 2 glory. So consider that. But in theory, the idea here is we're making the assumption that when you're playing this warband, you're going to have the primacy token more often than your opponent. And so for that reason, it's a pretty damn good
Yeah.
card. There's no movement restriction on it as well, kind of like, Deathly Fortitude and some of those other cards back in the day. So
Yeah. Yeah.
take it,
Yeah. I think this one
enjoy it,
is very good.
embrace the
Um,
power of the beast.
I guess something to keep in mind is if you lose the primacy and you only have 1 health left, you will die. But I guess that's the cost of doing business.
Indeed, indeed.
um, let's see. The next one is Spirit of Gorkamorka. You can reroll 1 dice, and this fighter's attack rolls for range 1 and range 2 attack actions. I feel like half of their cards so far have been rerolls.
I love it. I love it. I
or
love me some
accuracy of
accurate
some
attack
kind. Yeah,
actions.
yeah,
Take it. This is
uh,
auto include.
yeah. This one's way better than the other one. So, although Lucky Bone is this and Lucky Bone are probably the two that I would pick so far.
Lucky bonus fire, bro.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So just a great card. The next one is Spirit of the Beast. If you have the primacy token when you give this upgrade to a fighter, that fighter is inspired. When you gain the primacy token, this fighter is inspired. This fighter is on guard while you have the primacy token. What do you think about that?
This is really, really cool.
Yeah,
So I like the fact that there is a lot of layers to unpack here.
yeah,
Number one, um, if you just have the primacy token and you equip this, boom, you don't need to regain it to inspire this fighter.
yeah,
If you know you're going to get the primacy token, example through a power card, even
yep,
play this, get the primacy token. This fighter and another fighter of your choosing are inspired. Huge tempo swing, insane.
yeah,
And then the best part is, for fun, if you have primacy, they're also on guard. So really good on like a Tooth Dagger
yep,
or even your leader. In like if all your fighters are inspired, you just throw this on him. End of the game. So I love the fact that there's so many uses for this card that this is something that I am going to put in my deck and I'm going to try and I'm going to have fun with because if I can like inspire like 2 fighters off the bat, like that's insane. That I don't even need
yeah,
to protect Hedkrakka at that point anymore because I already got what I wanted. I got Wallop and my
yeah,
other guy inspired. So it really cool card.
yeah. I agree. I mean, the like every part of this is probably worth it. Like it's probably worth it to be inspired. It's definitely worth it to be on guard when the primacy is happening. I like that it can be shut off. Um, but yeah, it's very cool. Next one is Stamina Reserves. It's a reaction, so that is nice for that objective. Um, After this fighter's move action, discard this card. If you do, remove 1 move token from this fighter. And then another reaction, after this fighter's charge action, discard this card. If you do, give this fighter 1 move token and remove 1 charge token. That's pretty interesting.
I really like it. Worst case scenario is a Potion of Grace, but on
Yeah.
upgrade form,
Mm-hmm.
which that card did come back in the essentials. Um,
Yeah.
I like this because the thing is, if you've got a big fighter, you've got 4 or 5 wounds, obviously, maybe 2 dodge. You're going to. It's not gonna be. It's gonna be hard to kill them. So you can make a charge. You can react and then get that move token instead, and then from there you can keep making attacks or push your fighters around. So I don't know if it's a bad card per se because I like the applications. It's very telegraphed first and foremost.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually efficiently better to use this as a double move rather than a charge and then a move token. However, there are just some better cards out there that do the same thing. I mean, like, would you play this or a Spectral Wings, right? Would you do this or a Savage Speed? So it's things to consider. I don't want to
Right.
say it's a bad card because I really do think it deserves fair consideration, but I think it's going to be like my 11th upgrade and then I cut it because I want to I want to play it rather than I should play it. Does that make sense?
I think so. It's an interesting one because I think you're right that there'll be some situations when you would just love to be able to move two fighters. I mean, one fighter twice, probably particularly at the end of the game, when maybe there's a fighter that's just kind of out of the fight. But I think that this warband's general strategy is going to make it that not happen that often. I think usually they'll be just kind of in your business right away, and so for that reason, I think that you'd get the most use out of this second one, which is mostly just going to be useful on the leader because of his range 2 and range 3. And I'm just not sure how much you need that. So I think you're right that it's cool, but I don't know if I would. I think with the current selection of universals, I probably wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
Um, the last upgrade here is Thick Hide. If this fighter would be dealt precisely 1 damage, this fighter is not dealt that damage. It's pretty interesting.
I think this is important in strategies in which you really want a certain fighter to be alive, right? Because if you're going to stack a bunch of upgrades and wounds on one fighter, let's just say Lost Pages,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people will be like, okay, well, I have to do X amount of damage. Oh, but you're next to a lethal, you know? So if I can
Yeah.
just get you to push you through, um, then you can get finished off. So being able to ignore lethals is really important. Coincidentally, it does make you more prone to primacy, like getting primacied rather than,
Yeah.
you know, primacying other people, for lack of a better term. If we're making new phrases here. But I think this is okay. Very, very okay card.
Yeah.
One that when you play it, you'll surprise your opponent and you might be able to benefit from it maybe once or twice. But unless like Force Riders are meta, this is not something that I think I'm going to put in my deck often.
Yeah. I mean, at least in the current meta, there's not that many attacks coming out that are 1 damage, I would say. And this warband isn't particularly afraid of those attacks anyway. I think the biggest use case is, like you said, going to be the lethal hexes. Um, and because this is an aggressive warband and that, the lethal hexes are usually like in the middle of the board, um, this could actually be pretty good for them. Um, but I don't know. I don't think we'll see too much of it because it's kind of a unique situational card, but I like the design.
Yeah, I definitely like the design. I love the card text even more. It's like Dacko getting shot by arrows, and he's like, "Great, more arrows. That'll come in handy." You know, so
Yeah.
it's kind of funny.
Yeah. The text and the art on these are all pretty funny.
Yeah, yeah. I do wish they looked like the newer cards, like the
Oh
starter
yeah.
set cards. I
Yeah.
think that would have given them that would have made them look very cool because it looks like the art quality has improved as well. But these aren't bad at all. A lot of good
No, no.
flavor.
It's a cool
Um,
style.
what do you think about the upgrades overall? I think for me, I really like the fact that they're all kind of useful. I think if your worst cards are like -1 damage when you get dealt or no like like not ignoring 1 damage or like a potion
Yeah.
of grace on steroids, then like I think it's a really good concept. I mean, I think you mentioned earlier there's a lot of accuracy, so I'm a big fan of that. I really, really like this warband, and I think if I had to pick a favorite, I don't know, I'll avoid Lucky Bone for you. I really like Spirit of the Beast because it just makes me
Yeah.
really think. But also, like, if you can compound this early in the game, this is huge tempo swing for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the only puzzling thing to me about these upgrades is they're all very similar. There's so much accuracy. And then there's like one or two other things. There's a sort of a great strength, sort of a great fortitude. Um, so I wouldn't say I'm not really sure what my favorite is. Obviously, Lucky Bone I think is the best card
Yeah,
here.
for sure.
I think Stamina Reserves and Spirit of the Beast are neat. So We might see some of those as well. So, and Spirit of Gorkamorka. I don't know what's going on in that art there.
He's I think he's running at you,
Yeah,
or maybe he
maybe.
just landed. He's just copying Wolverine, really. Honestly,
Yeah,
just it's his shtick.
yeah.
So,
Cool.
um, cool. Well, really hope you guys enjoyed the review of the cards that come with Hedkrakka's Madmob. Um, Overall, I think they're a pretty good warband. A lot of fun. You're gonna have a lot of fun experimenting and playing with them. If you like, my whole thing is like they remind me of melee profiteers,
Yeah.
which is like is really what I wanted in life. So I'm very happy, and I really like that the warband has so much flavor, and they have a lot of cerebral plays. So like even if your strategy is to charge the opponent and go into enemy territory, the cards that supplement the warband are actually really neat because it makes you think on how
Yeah.
to best play around with the primacy shenanigans.
Yeah, I think that the primacy shenanigans are going to be the most fun part of this warband. I think we've touched on a couple possible like power plays and stuff, but I think that because this warband is so much better at getting primacy, because they'll get it on pretty much every kill. Um, I think they're just going to open up a lot of cards, whether it's some of the upgrades that give you bonuses for having primacy, or some of the primacy ploys or the primacy objectives. So I think that'll be where I think that's what we're going to have to discover over the next little while is, how much does that unlock?
Agreed.
I guess we will move on to the patron questions. I have the first one here. The first one is from Beard Art. It says the Essentials pack has me thinking about how GW could support old mechanics keywords with future Essential pack. Do you think a Magic Essentials pack or a Hunter Essential packs would be good for the game in the long term? I think yes, because it would keep older playstyles supported and not dilute new card support for new mechanics in the future. I think the trick is to pick the right cards and keep Magic or Hunters evergreen without creating imbalance in the game at a future point. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of feel bad because I disagree with Beard Arm a lot, but he asked really good questions. Um, and I suppose that's the point of asking questions like this. The Essentials Pack is good for many things. Primarily, it's a great starting point for a new player, so they can buy the starter set and the Essentials Pack, and then no matter what warband they pick up after the fact, assuming they don't buy everything at once, which is very rare, they'll always have a good core group of cards that they'll be able to pick from, and most of the cards in the Essential Pack are really good. Um, and then as they're buying additional warbands, they can add to that pool, and then they eventually become a full-fledged veteran player over time.
Yeah.
I think a Magic Essentials pack or a Hunter's Essentials pack, probably not, and I'll tell you why. Um, Magic is always in the game. If you look at every single Universal release so far, there's almost I think there's always been at least one Magic card or a card that supports magical style of play. Hunter Quarry is a seasonal mechanic. Now, while hunters will be in the game forever, and there I assume will be always support for hunters at some point, I don't necessarily think that dropping a pack just to buff a specific style of play is actually healthy for this game.
Yeah.
Because if you drop a bunch of magic cards, that first of all, that only limits it to like 7 or 8 warbands in the game. So only they can use those magic.
Or really just two.
Right,
if
and
you
that's
really
my
think
second
about it.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and that's my second point. Is it's just overload for curse breakers, um, and
Yeah.
candidly, like they had their time in the sun. They're still competitive. Like they're pretty decent today, but like they went at one point they were like in every single top 8, top 6 in Night Vault, and then they won their fair share of events as well. Now with Hunter, it's more of an interesting conversation because there are so many fighters with the Hunter keyword.
Yeah.
Now, Beard Arm is making the assumption that, you know, in theory, there's no more Hunter support after the season. I don't think that'll ever be the case. When half the fighters literally in your firefighter pool have a certain keyword, you're going to cater to it. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they added more keywords in the future. Um, I think in terms of balancing or imbalance, there's always going to be a case of that, regardless of whether these essentials packs or support packs are there or not. But I think, and what it seems to be what Games Workshop is doing, is that they're creating thematic rules for seasons that are engaging, and then they add cards that help build upon those rules so players can take full advantage of them. However, they don't solely focus on those as well. And because of that, you get this interesting metagame that never feels like it's the same as previous seasons. And because of that reason, I really do believe, while more cards are always a good thing, I think we've also agreed in the past that less cards but better cards are always I think would be preferred for us. Um,
Yeah.
and so, in a roundabout manner, what I'm saying is no. I don't think they'd be good for the game in the long term because I think that they're always going to have better options for cards in the long term, and then that'll support every warband rather than just 6 or 1 in Cursebreaker's case. And then with the hunter stuff, you're just really at that point you're just increasing the gap between
Yeah.
the older warbands and the new warbands, and like I don't know if that's necessarily the plan, and I think it'll upset people who really like the older warbands.
Yeah.
That's how I
Yeah.
feel.
I don't know if I feel quite as strongly as you do. I think that I would have been okay, for example, if there was like one hunter card or 200 cards or 2 spells in the essentials pack. But I think there's a good reason why they didn't do that. Um, and I think that the nice thing about the essentials pack is that it works for everybody, and they're relatively generic or straightforward cards. Um, I don't think there's anything wrong with there always being a uh, inspired command in the game, or a sidestep in the game, those kind of things. I think if there was always Abzat's Unmaking, which is one of my favorite spells from Nightfall, I think that maybe that would get a little old. My preference for the magic mechanic would be that each season has a new sort of theme of magic that is playable but thematic. And then for hunters, I guess we'll just have to see what their support is like. But so far, I mean, they have tons of support. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want there to be this like separate product that you have to buy just to play like 7 warbands or whatever, or and then but everybody else could skip. I don't know if I just don't know if I like that idea as much. But
Well, the thing is no one's ever going to skip if they're a competitive player,
yeah,
right? So,
exactly.
or a completionist or a collectionist. So that's another thing. But also, like the essentials pack is designed for you to build off the starter pack. There are no hunters and there are no wizards in the starter pack, and it's because it's
Right.
supposed to be an easy, simple warbands that have complexity in other ways rather than keywords, because keywords can get confusing and hard to remember.
Yeah.
Um,
And they actually announced a new card pack that's coming out soon, I think.
the Silent Menace, yeah,
Yeah, and
which
they
will
said that
be
that doesn't have any spells in it either. I wouldn't have minded if it did. I just would
right.
have wanted them to be dire chasm themed.
Yeah, well,
So
it's a pre-constructed deck, right? So the idea is like
yeah,
pick a warband, take this deck, you're good to go. Doesn't matter which warband you're picking. Um,
yeah, and I appreciate that intention. I just feel like it's unlikely that people are going to do that past the you know, first time they open it, probably.
right.
But I don't know. Maybe that'll be a fun like format. You just get that and you get a warband and then you see how that warband does with that deck. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be fun.
We'll
That
have
could
to
be
see
fun.
it.
I just really don't think like magic is important to this game, but it's never going to be what it once was. And I really feel like people's challenge like struggle with that, like digesting that. Like it
Oh,
was
maybe.
broken when it came out. Like let's not even BS around it. Like it
Yeah.
should have never been that strong. It was very strong, and as you can see, it is more a supplementary tool with like some really cool tech pieces that can be played. Um, but like no, it's like if you build a magic warband, it's not gonna work. So I don't know. I guess in a roundabout way, like Beard Arm, like I think it's a good concept. I just think that there are better things that we can do with that. And I really like the fact that um, every single card is available for every single warband. But next question,
Yeah.
Cole Cole WG. For the next episode, what are the cards from season 1 and 2 that you wish were in the essentials pack but are not?
Hmm. I think I miss keep them guessing. I was thinking about that today actually.
Yeah.
Um, I I think it makes sense that it's not in there because it is sort of it's a very particular card that kind of requires a certain play style. But I wouldn't have minded it either. It's cool. How about you?
Keep chopping.
Mm. What was the other one? The one where you crit and do 2 damage? Concealed weapon? I would like that one back. But we
Concealed
don't
weapon
need
is
that one
good.
right now. We have enough
Um,
damage.
yeah, I really like keep chopping. Um, I wouldn't have minded like what armor.
Hmm.
I wouldn't have minded like a
Get the hints would have been nice for all the
yeah
knockback, make knockback a
yeah
little bit better.
yeah.
Yeah.
I really miss those two cards. Anything else really I don't really care for. Um,
Yeah.
I really actually there was one card, Potion of Constitution. That's a good one.
Oh yeah.
That's one I liked a lot.
Yeah.
I liked Potion of Constitution a lot. And then yeah, everything else that I liked from Nightvolt is back in the Essentials pack actually. So
Yeah. Maybe 2 steps forward, but I feel like I don't know if we need it, but that was a fun one. I like that one.
Two Step Swords was interesting, quite abusable at one point.
Yeah, with all the surges. Yeah.
I wonder there was one from Power Unbound. Oh, it'll come back to me. I'll look it up while you ask the next question.
Sure. We have 2 questions from Matt. What is your favorite non-Underworlds board or tabletop game, and why?
Mm. Non Underworlds board or tabletop game. That's really interesting. So if we're removing card games from the equation, um, honestly, so the board game that I've played the most is Secret Hitler a board game? No, it's not.
I don't know. I don't
That's a
know what
really
that
fun
is.
game, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, I guess if it's not Secret Hitler, let me look at the back here. I don't know what's wrong with my dog. She's fucking. Oh, sorry, I just f bombed on podcast. Oops. My bad. Um, I think it's Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Yeah.
I think I've played that game
Yeah.
a lot during lockdown, like 2020. They have a really good Discord community. They have a really good online simulator, and it's actually really well supported. The devs have kept up with the game from a competitive standpoint because they understand that the game is being run primarily online at the moment, and they're pretty cool with it. And so they've updated their banned and restricted list as well.
Hmm.
So, and of course, who doesn't like Marvel fighters? I mean, like
Yeah.
they have like they started out with like all the basic Avengers, and a lot of the releases had to do with the TV shows and the movies. But like they've got X-Men out, so if you really like X-Men or Deadpool or um, the Avengers or Spider Foes like Mysterio, Carnage, Venom, like all those guys, cool models, really cool, fun rules. It's not as so like there's an online community that's extremely competitive, like very competitive. There's a lot of great content and resources,
Hmm.
but I think if you play Underworlds, it's not going to translate directly like to it. It's more
Yeah.
of like if you've played it. I tried to get you into it, and you appreciated it, but wasn't super exciting for you. I think for me, um, like if you've played like a War Machine or like a Hordes or Kill
Hmm.
Team or even 40K, then this will translate really well for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the closest to those um, kind of games. Yeah. It doesn't really have the card element of Underworlds as much as it has the like stratagem element from 40K. Like it has cards, but they're more like stratagems
Yeah,
because your
most
opponent
games.
also knows what they're going to be. I think.
Yeah, well, and also like you pick 5 cards,
Yeah.
gambits or whatever, and like they're open information, so you know what
Right.
gambits your opponent has and I have, and so you have to like think like when is my opponent going to play this card? Can I trigger their card early, etc. But then also like most games are not won by like beating up the enemy opponent. They're like holding objectives or like holding points or like picking up objectives and running around with the board with them. But one of
Yeah.
the really cool things is like there's no limit. Like you can play Thanos with Captain America and Magneto, and you know Deadpool on the same team if you wanted to, right?
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
benefits for playing like an Avengers roster. But regardless, before we get into too deep of a rabbit hole, I think it's a
Right.
really fun game. I think you should consider it, especially if you love the Marvel universe and especially if you're a painter, because some of the miniatures are amazing, very cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's a cool game. For me, I'm trying to think what my other board game would be. I've definitely played a lot of like Settlers of Catan. That's probably one of my favorites.
That's a good one.
Um, I tend to hyper focus on things. So right now and over the last couple of years, Underworlds has kind of been my my game. When I do play other board games, I always find like I learn it in the first couple times I play it, and then if I like it, I just want to play it more, and I just want to play it over and over and over again and get better at it. And there's some games are better at that than others, and some people don't want to play Settlers of Catan 7 times until you break it, you know. Um, so that's what I like about Underworlds because it's has a lot of replayability. But there was a game called, man, I forget what it's called. I think it's called Spyfall. That's pretty fun. I think you can. I think it was a card game originally, but it's like a party game, and you have to like describe. You have to like give people hints, and there's like a spy, and there's like a you're trying to figure out who the spy is, and that's a lot of fun. I think there's apps for it too. I think you can play it on your phone,
Skyfall
with people. Yeah, I think that's what it's. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called.
board game.
But that's a lot of fun. I think what you do is like you have a group of
Spyfall.
you have a group of people, and one of them does not know where you are. So like everybody in the group will have it'll be like the Arctic. You're at like an Arctic station or something, and then you can ask people questions and stuff. And one person in the group doesn't know where they are and has to pretend that they do. So you'll be like, "What are you wearing?" And you'll be like, "A coat," and they'll know that oh they're somewhere with a coat. But I don't know. It's interesting, but you kind of find out who from your friends are good at lying or not. So
It's kind of like Guess Who, but like
kind
more
of,
detailed.
yeah, yeah,
It's got a 7 out of 10 on Board Game Geek, so I'm gonna check that one out. That seems fun.
yeah.
I really like
It is
games where
fun.
like people who aren't really into board games or like into like Warhammer like us like would want to
Yeah.
play. And so like Catan is one that like my friends I've been able to convert into,
Hmm.
but and Kingdom Rush is one that's on my shelf in the back. That's been fun too. If you like the mobile
I think
game
I've heard of
genre,
that. Yeah.
Kingdom Rush is a fun mobile game. I've replayed all of them so many times. But yeah, next question from
Hmm.
Matt: how do you practice for an event or Grand Clash? Do you try to practice generally or look for specific matchups? What do you think? What do you do?
Yeah, this will have to be something that we we talk more about as we have big events to practice for.
Yeah,
Um,
we both won events in the past, so how
yeah.
did you practice for those? Right?
So I think what I normally do is I kind of start with the warband that I want to play, and I'll try to pick something that I think doesn't have any hard counters that are popular. And once I make that selection, then I feel like that gets me part of the way there. And then from then on, I think I kind of just hone the deck to make it as reliable as possible. So I would say that's more of practicing generally, but I think I at the same time want to know that I can handle specific matchups. So maybe it's a combination of the two, but that's kind of how I formulate it. I pick something that doesn't have any glaring weaknesses, and then I try to make that as strong as possible.
And how do you practice for it?
Um, I mean, by practicing, I just try to play good players that are playing good decks that will um, be able to beat the crap out of it. But I think that the it almost doesn't. I guess it does matter that they're good players, but I think the biggest thing is getting familiar with the deck itself. Like, what do you do
Yeah,
with a bad card draw? What do you do with, do you throw that bad objective hand away or can you afford to do that? Um, Getting used to, I find that when you play a deck a lot, you'll start to understand like what cards have you not seen yet? What should you be expecting in a way that you don't quite understand the first couple times that you play it. So I think for me, it's more about being familiar with the deck than it is any particular matchup or um, person that you're playing against. Although I think the better the person and the more competitive the matchup, the better.
yeah. I kind of agree. I think for me, whenever I've decided what I want to play and why I think it's good into the current meta, um, I just play a lot. I just there's a point where you stop, right? You don't want to over practice yourself.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's really important. So for me, it depends on how familiar I am with the deck. Like when I was like doing my Profiteer World Tour, like I just was like so intimately familiar with the deck. Like sometimes I just wouldn't play in between Grand
Yeah,
Clashes because like I just knew how to play it. I think when it comes to like a warband that you may not necessarily be entirely familiar with, um, the more games the merrier. I think really it just comes down to, can you play with people who are familiar with the deck? Can you learn from them? So like for example, like when I was like trying to play Thorns, like I asked Tommy Conboy like what he thought.
yeah,
We didn't end up playing any games together, but like just getting his input was important because if anyone's played games with that warband, it's him, right?
sure,
Um,
yeah,
so, but then you have to have like a good practice group and people who are willing to. And there are going to be times where you're like, okay, well the game is already lost at this point. Can we go back and see like what would have happened if I had done this decision instead? So you're going to want to have people who are willing to indulge you as well. And like a lot of the time, the nature of this game is like, let's just finish the game out. Let's just finish the game out. But like, there's always going to be a point where you know when you've lost.
yeah.
So
Well,
I
we'll
think
do
it's
that when
important.
we play. We'll just like it'll be the first round, and we'll just say, okay, I think this is over. Let's
Yeah,
re-rack and try
let's
again.
re-rack or like let's say if I put the objective here now when we re-rack, like
Yeah,
does that make a difference? Like that's important because
yeah,
then you just have to do that one time, and if you get it that one time, you know how to play the matchup moving forward. And I think
yeah,
that's why I think we've been I think very lucky and successful in the past because that's kind of just how we do things. Um,
yeah. I think that's true. I think that like there'll be some times when we set up the board and we're like, is this really how we want it to be set up?
yeah, I
Okay,
can't tell you.
we'll set it up,
Go
and I'll
ahead.
be like, are you sure? Because I think this is really good for me, and you set up the boards, or vice versa,
Yeah,
and then
I
we'll
can't tell you
we'll
how many
just talk
times we've
about
just
that.
like yeah, we've just placed fighters and then we're just like, nah, let's just reset this, you know, like because
Yeah,
but that's how you got to do it. You got to find one or two dudes who are gonna like invest time in you, learn with you, and care about your success as much as theirs. And it's really hard to do that. Like everyone's really friendly in this community, but like a lot of people don't have time, and so you got to find someone who's on your schedule. So
yeah. Well,
I
it
guess
also
Matt,
just depends what they want. If you're just doing a looking for game, then you should probably finish the game. But
yeah, yeah, but like
um,
for you, Matt, like that could be Derek, right? Like just mess
yeah,
around with Derek and have fun and see what's up.
yeah.
Um, Next question is from Duke Ashcan.
Hmm.
What might be a good warband release in the past 2 seasons to relearn the game after your layover of not playing?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think Duke Ashcan is actually local to my area. I think I know who that is. um, I would say maybe the Dread Pageant. I think they're a lot of fun anyway. I think they're pretty powerful. Um, they kind of, I think they'll sort of teach you objective play in the current meta. I don't know if they're easy, but uh, I think they're strong. So I like that. Um, what do you think?
So outside of the starter set, um,
Hmm.
I really think actually the Starblood Stalkers,
Yeah, maybe.
because they've got some really cool. They've got varied fighters, so like
Hmm.
Autopodal can like place tokens. Um, they've got good range. They've got a good range of mix of melee. They've got different wound counters characteristics. You've got the beat stick and Clacktrock. Their objectives are like are different and varied. They have cards that are really good to like focus on Clacktrock, cards that are maybe not. So I really like that that'll teach you the game state and like they have good game into crushes and Hearthcorn. Well, not maybe not Hearthcorn, but crushes, right? Like that
Hmm.
you can be competitive.
Yeah.
Um, I also think Miari's Purifiers is a really good one, just because like
Yeah.
they're kind of good at everything, but they're not the best at everything.
Yeah, I think like the vampires might be a little bit complex. Um,
Yeah.
or there's just a lot going on there. I think once you play them, they're not actually that complex. I think you just kind of go aggro or you go defensive, but it's a
Well,
little bit annoying to like keep track of all their tokens and stuff,
yeah.
or things
The
like that.
interesting thing about the Crimson Court is like they really push the boundaries of like what you can do with fighter cards, which I think is really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Um, but for simplicity's sake, I think I think that's chill.
yeah. I think maybe the guys we just talked about, the Hedkrakkas, Madmob, are probably a pretty good intro to the primacy mechanic. They have it.
For
They
the
kind
primacy
of
mechanic,
primacy
yes.
on easy mode,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It really just depends on what you're trying to go for. I
yeah,
really think I think I think the Dire Chasm starter set, the more and more I think about Dread Pageant, or the starter set are your two best bets. Both 4 wound fighters, both can mess around with objectives, both are good at combat.
yeah,
All four of them really. So I think those are really good spots. I actually will say I think the Dire Chasm starter set is probably the best starter set we've ever had.
maybe.
In terms of like balance,
Yeah,
um, and like learning the game and being competitively viable after their release. Obviously, Night Volt was just on steroids, but
and they were a little bit too good, and then maybe the just spoilers could have been better. But
you know they're
I'm a
more
big fan of the Wild
apparently.
Hunt still.
I love the Wild Hunt, but apparently the spoilers are still rearing their head every once in a while, right? So
Yeah, that's true. Tommy did really good with them recently.
yeah, but is that Tommy or the spoilers?
I think it's Tommy.
Yeah, I think it's Tommy. But yes,
Yeah.
I think those are really good warbands to start with, and I think they're both really good
I
purchases.
guess we should have just said anything but Ravagers. But oh well.
Ravagers isn't bad. If anything, it'll teach you why you need more than just aggressive stat balls.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Let's see. The next one is from Saris. Which of the currently released orcs do you think you'd stand the most chance with in a scrap? Which one would you not want to meet in a dark alley?
super simple. So
Okay.
out of all the orcs released so far, I wouldn't mind seeing like bash or hack in an alley. I'd
Yeah.
take you gonna do 1 damage to me? That's cool, bro.
Yeah,
Take you
they're
out
probably
real
not going to
quick.
hit you either.
Yeah, they're gonna miss the whole time. So I think I have the most chance of a scrap with them. I mean, they're still orcs, very very tough. But
Yeah.
if the assumption is that like I'm a fully conditioned, like human warrior who lives in the mortal realms, and I think I got a pretty decent chance. Who would I not want to meet in a dark alley? Ardskull.
What about of the four new ones?
Uh, of the 4 new ones,
Yeah.
honestly, I would love to just chill with like Hedkrakka. I would just want to understand his his whole outlook on life.
Yeah.
Maybe get to meet Mr. Fangs in a very friendly setting. Um,
Yeah.
but to answer this question, out of the Madmob, which are the currently released Madmob fighters, probably Daco. But actually, he looks ripped. I don't know, man. Actually, I don't think I'd survive against any fighters
Yeah.
against the Madmob. They're all conditioned AF. Personally, the one I'd want to avoid the most is Tufdaga. That guy is insane.
Yeah. Yeah. At least uh wallop it would be quick, I think. I don't I probably only have 2 health, so I think he'd get me either way.
Yeah, fair enough.
um
What about you? Currently released orcs, so all of them.
hmm, I don't know. Which one's the slowest? I
I
guess.
think the slowest is 3 move,
Yeah,
and
I
they
guess
all
they're
three
all
move.
three. Yeah. I don't know. It wouldn't be pretty no matter what. Maybe maybe wallop. I don't know. Maybe you could run away, but
His model is literally running at you.
yeah, he's
His
running at
miniature.
me. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's tough. None
It's
of
a
the
fun
above, I
question though.
guess. Yeah.
You have to pick one.
Then yeah, it would be like Hako or Basha, probably.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Who would you hate to see? Who would you
Um,
just be like, well, my life's over?
Probably Gerzag. That would be because he's got all the armor and stuff too.
Gerzag is a
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He's the original. He's the OG.
Yeah.
He's the OG. Art Skull just looks very scary to me.
Yeah.
He's
That's
got the
true.
crazy beak helmet,
Morgok's
giant.
pretty scary looking too. He's a brute.
The problem with Morgok is he looks smart too. So it's like you can't even like trick. Well, you could maybe like trick Art Skull, but you can't trick Morgok. If you
Yeah.
reverse grip a dagger, you know what's up. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. That's true.
Um, Next question: do you think Mad Mob? This is from Kyler. Do you think Mad Mob will break the primacy mechanic? Do you foresee a card like Feign Strength being restricted because it will be too powerful for them? What do you think?
Um, I mean, I would say that in one respect, they are going to break primacy and that they're going to be the best at it. They get it easier than anybody else because they'll get it anytime they kill someone for the most part. Um, you know, the archer can just, move on to an objective, which is a pretty strong situationally. Um, so yeah, I mean, they're gonna be the best at it, just like the vampires. Unlike the vampires, I don't think that they like primacy is still really good for everybody. I think they're just going to be better at it, and particularly into certain matchups like crushes. Like they can just reliably just keep fighting the crushes, and they will eventually be able to get the kills and get the primacy. So I like that, but I don't know that it's. We'll have to see if it's imbalanced. I feel like overall the quality of their cards, their faction cards, is good, but not crazy. I think they're going to use a lot of universals, and I don't think their stats are um, I would say like above average. I think they're solid, but like I think the vampires have better stats off the bat, for example. Um, so I don't think Feign Strength will be restricted. Again, I don't really love Feign Strength for them because I think that they want to have the primacy in the end phase. But I guess it depends what deck you take. Um, I guess if they are too strong, the easiest thing to do would just be to hit a couple of their um, better cards. I think the primary uh, candidate would be Primal Brutality because I think that is probably uh, their best card just because of the way it works with their primacy thing. But I'm optimistic that these guys will be good at primacy, very playable, but not overpowered. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I guess yeah, you're absolutely correct. They're going to be the best at primacy. I don't think they're going to break it because the cool thing about so unlike vampires and hunger and Hrothgorn and Hunter Quarry and Curse Breakers with magic, this is a still a universal mechanic that
Yeah,
everybody is going to be playing with and can take advantage of. And there are cards like Underdog that can like be scored off that. Like you can't score because my opponent plays 30 spells in one turn. You can't score. I guess you could score Absolute Stillness, but like you're not always going to see Hrothgorn, but you're always going to see primacy. I don't think I've played any games in season 4 where there have been no primacy.
it's
I don't
pretty
think I've
rare.
played.
Yeah.
I don't think I played a single one. So there's always a way where you can kind of play into it. Will they be more? The thing I think about the Madmob is they're better at gaining, spending, and gaining it back. They're the best
Yeah.
at that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't affect your ability to score off the primacy, whether it's through underdog or to gain benefits by not having the primacy token or for stealing the primacy token back, right? So
Yeah.
no, I don't think they're breaking primacy. In fact, I think they're adding a more cerebral layer to people who want to delve into primacy more. And then for cards like Feign Strength, no, I don't think it's gonna be restricted. No way. It's
And
there's a very clear trade off for Feign Strength.
interestingly, the like the power that a warband gets by being the only one that can use a mechanic or being the best at a mechanic usually is just how many more cards are playable because they have that ability. Like that's kind of the reason that Curse Breakers were way better is they just had access to more better cards that synergized together well. And then same thing with Hrothgorn. Like Victimize is a pretty good card for everybody else, but it's kind of ridiculous on him. Hunter's Talisman, there's other examples.
Yeah.
This, I feel like most of these cards are gonna be. I feel like there's just a much smaller number of cards that are completely that other people just completely ignore that these guys can play very reliably. I think they still interact with the primacy mechanic in a like a good way, like a productive way, and then you can still take primacy away from them or gain it yourself the same way that you always do. You're not worse at primacy just because you're playing against these guys. They might have a couple more tricks than somebody else, but um, I don't think I think they're that just means that's some of their power, and it seems like it's built into their cards and the way that they play. I mean, some of these cards, if you don't have primacy, they're not very good cards. Um, so it seems like they took that into account in a pretty cool way. So
Yeah. I think it's well said. I think the warband is really good at taking advantage of having the primacy token,
mhm.
but if you remove that from the equation, they're a very average statted and looking warband.
Yeah.
But furthermore, again, it doesn't impact your play.
Yeah.
If their fighters get stronger, it's only because they're inspired. But like, I don't know. I don't know if there's much difference between a fully inspired Madmob and a fully inspired Crimson Court. Um,
Yeah, and like from a game design and like game balance perspective, I think I prefer the Mad Mob over the Crimson Court.
yeah,
Just because for the Crimson Court, like there literally are just like 25 cards that you would never consider on any other warband that the Crimson Court have access to. And I don't know that the Crimson Court are overpowered per se. I don't know if we've really seen enough games to see that. And the current meta, I think they seem strong, but maybe not that amazing. But they're always going to have more options as long as hunger is in the game. Um, and then weirdly, they may have way less options, or I guess they'll just have everybody else's options when hunger is gone. But
yeah.
um, I don't know. I think I'm optimistic right now that this won't be an issue.
I don't think it is, and I think we can see that in the power level of the cards, and the way that
Yeah.
again everything works with themselves and is not taking advantage of you not having the primacy token. If everything was like, if your opponent doesn't have the primacy token, get like 3 dice, like then I think like that's a problem. But
Yeah.
this was very delicately and exquisitely crafted to enjoy a mechanic within a warband's bounds, but not create a negative play experience for your opponent. Unlike Magic, Hunter Quarry, and some of those other stuff that we're talking about. Um,
They did it,
but
I guess.
yeah, yeah. Instead of to avoid beating this into a bush, I think as always, thanks for listening to our thoughts on Hedkrakka's Mad Mob, and keep in mind that we do have a contest. Again, send us your best WA via audio or video. We'd love to see video so we can see how well you get into the spirit. What is it called? Channeling the spirit of Gorka Morka or the Beast. Looking forward to that. But I have nothing else to add. Jonathan, what about you?
No, I think that is it. I don't know if beating something into a bush is a saying, but I love it.
Is it not?
And I don't know. I've never heard of it
I'm gonna Google
before.
that right now. You just said beating it into a bush.
I
Oh,
think
it's
there's
beating
beating it
around the
around.
bush.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Beating it.
I
What is it? Yeah. Okay.
good enough.
Uh, well, there's a word for it.
Beating a
There's
dead
also just a,
horse.
no. That's another phrase. At the risk of sounding, what is it when you've repeated something too much? Too much word. Uh, Not repetitive. What's a similar synonym to repetitive? I
I don't
literally
know.
used this word the other day. Um, hold on. There's another word for repetitive, relative synonyms. I'm gonna figure this out, and all of you along, especially the guys screaming the answer over and over again, are going to. It's not tedious. It's not repetitive. Oh, it's belabor. I don't want to belabor
Belabor.
the point.
Yes,
Belabor the point. I
exactly.
saw the word labor and I remember belabor. So, at the risk of belaboring the point,
There you go.
that's all I've got.
Well, once again, thank you to our patron supporters. If you'd like to join our current patrons, you can do so at patreon.com/path to glory. You can find all of our blog content on pathtoglorypodcast.com. If you have any feedback, questions, or comments, let us know on Facebook, Twitter, or Discord at Path to Glory Podcast. Please rate and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. As always, thanks for listening, and we wish you the best of luck on your path to glory.
Wog!
That was good.
Oh, man, I'm such a nerd.